Hello there, I'm MountPain27 and this is Dean of Doom, the show where we give grades to classic and contemporary Doom wads. Why? Because ranking things is fun. Today's episode will be dedicated to Sunder, specifically its first 14 maps released in 2009 by Insane Gazebo. 2009. It's hard to believe, but Sunder has now been around for more than half of Doom modding's history. If we exclude its progeny, it would be very difficult to name a more influential WAD released after Sunder's original 14 maps. To say that Insane Gazebo changed the trajectory of Doom mapping is no exaggeration. Slaughter was unfashionable when he started out, and between the hell-revealed imitators and nuts clones, there was no reason to expect it to suddenly become popular. Although its impact in challenge-seeking circles was immediate, it took many years for Sunder, its derivatives, and its design philosophies to percolate into the mainstream. For the few who possessed the skills required to conquer it and who had mapping aspirations of their own, there was no unseeing Sunder. So great was Gazebo's gravitational pull that several of his disciples became legends in their own right during the 10 years that he vanished from the community. The tale of Insane Gazebo's departure and return is beyond the scope of today's episode, but I can only imagine how much more power these first 14 maps must have had when their author was still a ghost. I have never known a Doom community without him. Now more widely appreciated, tamed by speedrunners and Let's Players of all stripes, old Sunder is considered almost docile by today's standards, but it rewrote the definition of enormity, brought prestige to a long-disparaged mapping style, and showed us what we talk about when we talk about Doom. Here's how the show works. Every map gets one grade for quality and one for difficulty. Quality grades go from A to F. Grade A levels are fun, memorable, visually distinctive, creative, and a fair challenge. We grade difficulty from X to E. X for extreme, E for easy, A through D in between. Remember that disagreeing is part of the fun, and at the end of the day, this show is about spreading the joy of Doom. So let's do so. The rules are, we play on ultraviolence and must pistol start each level. I need to play the WAD twice before reviewing it. Saves are allowed, and we go for 100% kills in all levels, making exceptions when it's just not worth it. I played Sunder on Z-Doom, as Insane Gazebo intended, har har, switching to DSDA when my computer started smoking. Compatibility is boom. Now, to the WAD. Map 1, Python. The majority of today's Doom community arrived after Sunder left its mark, myself included. It's tempting to cover my insecurity with fake detachment, to deride Python as baby Gazebo taking his first steps, but I can't. How portentous must this map have been to boot up and play back in the day? Could anyone have guessed what was coming? I was born and bred on Sunder worshipping wads, so I thought I knew what was coming. Imagine my surprise when nervousness jangles in my hands as the first Archvile dance begins. Python is a statement of purpose. The first demons you encounter are Hell Knights, Revenants, and Archviles. These are the standard denominations. Crowds of chaff make you fight for space. Small weapons turn into big weapons, and with big weapons come bigger obstacles. You will be asked to pay attention to Archviles and Cyberdemons at the same time. Cyberdemons are your friends. Be nice to them until it's time to not be nice. There are no secrets. Treat power-ups with respect, never trust a pile of corpses, and don't fall. Don't fall. This is how it will be. It's true. Looking at these cliffs, I do think Insane Gazebo sure came a long way. But hopping over bodies on my way to the exit in the year 2026, I also think, man, was that fun. Grade A, difficulty B+. Map 2, The Burrow. The red cavern walls, crosses, silhouetted trees, and winding sphinctral tunnels suggest that the Burrow may belong to the Alien Vendetta Hell family. If that's so, it lost contact with them a long time ago. It's a joy to watch the monsters clash, to unleash a big pink distraction and escape. There's no point in killing all these guys when you can outsource the job to cyberdemons. Crush the bones dancing about in the dead worm's guts and get ready for a lesson in Hell Knight mechanics. We talk a lot of trash on the big imps, but when they're attacking from 3 sides, you'd be surprised how many cheap shots land. I try to save rockets here, so I have some left over after I've clipped the Archviles in round 2 topside. The Cybers can handle the rest. After tearfully parting with our 2 companions, we come to the only weak part of the Burrow. Sniping these Archvile sentries. they're completely and utterly harmless. We've seen a few crowds in Sunder so far, but the skeletons are the first force that will make you give ground. It's an interesting fight, because Gazebo doesn't lock you in, but he doesn't give you enough ammo either, so it sort of devolves into a hunt for stragglers and then picks up again when you enter the building, find 30 more rockets, and face the revenants that got stuck on the way out. It's trepidatious and spontaneous and strange. I know the burrow is supposed to be a dire forecast of things to come, but it's too enjoyable to scare me. Grade A, difficulty A-. Map 3, the Dreaming Garden. What's in a name? Everything. Without it, what are we looking at? A lot of tile, grass, supports, weird leering faces, hexadoodles and squigglies of right angles. It's a garden. What a perfect word that is, and the beautiful ambiguity of dreaming. Is the garden for dreaming, or is the garden itself dreaming? The Dreaming Garden, a phrase like a soft puff of air that turns the pinwheel in your mind. What a serrated contrast it makes with the scenery's rigidity, the increasingly regimented fights that unfold. If the burrow foreshadowed Sunder's ability to press you to death with monster mass, the Dreaming Garden gives you a taste of powerlessness. This harvest of hell nobles seems manageable at first, especially with a deputized cyberdemon, but you shoot, and for an uncomfortable stretch, nothing gets better. The cyberdemon bites it, you're running out of rockets, then, finally, it breaks, and you can breathe again. That easing back into control feeling is what Sunder and all its offspring are about, and you can't get it without accepting that temporary sensation of drowning. The ending always struck me as really bizarre. A stack of blocks buried in the garden's outskirts. It didn't seem to fit the theme, and then it hit me. When do we play with blocks? As babies, when our minds are still forming, when abstraction is all we know. It's as if Sunder itself is aware that it's made of pixels, little building blocks. Here in the Dreaming Garden, it's manifestly true. The battle in the block building offers a merciful invuln to weather the firestorm, but it won't save you from the missing block in the floor should you fall. Tread lightly, take the key, and you may leave the garden. This is an unbelievably significant map whose penetrating surrealism has stood the test of time. Grade A+, difficulty A+. Map 4, Metal Descendants. How to put this? Metal Descendants succeeds at being not very fun. Crushers are nearly nobody's favorite thing, so it should fly in the face of reason to spend an entire map exploring the concept, but Gazebo makes the experience memorable and mostly tolerable. Before entering this level, square yourself with the fact that most of your engagement with the enemy will be indirect. I didn't even pull the trigger until I gained access to the chain gunner gallery in the first room, because I'd rather not be chased by Hell Knights in here. From a safe perch, you can walk them through the presses until they're paced. Snatch the yellow key from the Revenant room and you can wrangle another herd in the same way. This is where Metal Descendants begins straining my patience. You're not strictly required to kill everything with crushers, but Gazebo gives you about 1 rocket and 2 shells for every 4 enemies in the map. So no matter what you do, Metal Descendants itself will always claim the highest kill count. In the sense that you and the demons have a common enemy, Metal Descendants is an interesting idea, but I have issues with how Insane Gazebo implements it. I acknowledge the atmospheric work being done by the darkness, but too much time is spent in it squinting for switches and or waiting for them to open. Old Sunder's signature cowardice countermeasure is famous because almost no one actually tries to flee Gazebo's fights before they're finished, especially these days. Those who forget to press the switches during fights get to sit around feeling stupid for a minute or two. Time lost on switches adds to an already long waiting period for monsters to get squished or rip each other to pieces. There's also an inconsistency where some turret monsters, like these Mancubi, get crushed when their part is discharged, but others, like these pissant revenants, do not. I haven't gotten to the worst part of the map yet. Getting crushed in Doom is such a tactile unpleasantness. You can't move, the screen reddens, Doom Guy gets unhappy, it sucks. Now combine that with platforming and chain gunners, and you have Metal Descendants' most notorious set piece. As much as I despise this part, it is an important moment in this Megawad for 1, establishing Sunder as a merciless entity, and 2, being one of the last times you're allowed to teleport out of a pit. I don't see Metal Descendants as a gimmick map so much as part of a comprehensive study on death in Doom. I can acknowledge its necessity without enjoying it. Grade B-, difficulty A+. Map 5, Precarious. If Sunder's thanatological thesis wouldn't be complete without crushers, then it wouldn't be complete without platforming either. An archipelago of half-devoured ruins connected by crumbling stacks of bricks swaying 300 feet above lava, Precarious is the only map in old Sunder that really scares me. The threat of death is almost constant. It attacks the part of your game that you are least likely to have refined, even if you're Sunder's demographic, and so relentlessly that you'll either have to improve while playing, skip the map, or quit if you're not on its level. I have always disliked Doom platforming, and my reasoning is this. In Doom, your mistakes fall on a spectrum from negligible to fatal. Usually, it takes consecutive bad decisions to kill you. In platforming, there is no spectrum, only the binary of success or failure, and its presence heightens the stakes enough to change Doom into a different game. More accurately, it puts a bare bulb on what Doom really is. Be where damage is not. That's it. As the margin for error approaches zero, Doom generally becomes less fun for me. However, when in Sunder, you do as the challenge seekers do. You welcome death like an old friend, stretch your fingers, and see what the you're made of. Precarious is easiest when it looks the busiest. The Cyberdemon battles are islands of paradise compared to the short, diagonal hops that suddenly make you stop and gulp. A single lost soul hitting you mid-crossing is as good as a rocket in the face, and there are no less than 11 lost soul generators in this map. I get it. You have to. The Pain Elemental is king troublemaker, and there's no better playground for trouble than Precarious, but God forbid one of them floats far, far away or starts the infight with his minions. God forbid one of these fiery families floats way up high and blocks you while you're trying to book it to safety. Nothing about the Pain Elemental situation is fair. What are you going to do about it? Apparently you're just supposed to run away from this Archvile trio. But have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a real man? I'm just kidding. I'm not a real man, I'm save scum. If we step away from the challenge discussion for a moment, Precarious has only two shortcomings that I can see. Searching for skull switches is stupid, and Boom is stupid. A Revenant managed to punch a Cyberdemon off the edge in this recording, and this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think. In a meager display of will, I forced myself to walk from the final fight to the exit without mid-saving, and doing so got the teensiest taste of what a nerve shredder that would be in a real run. What separates Precarious from the pack is the imperative to practice it. Slaughter enthusiasts can waltz into all kinds of calamities and feel at home, but not Precarious. If you feel at home here, you really are playing an entirely different game. Precarious is one of Doom's great senseis, and all great senseis are sons of bitches. Grade A, difficulty X. Map 6, Grinder. Yes, that title is correct. Grinder is all about wearing down player morale. To do anything in this map, it takes great effort, and it takes forever. With so many species of sniper encircling you at the start, the only way to escape sitting duckhood is up the zigzag stairs, but when you do, Gazebo hammers you with an Archvile-led surprise attack to supplement awkward cyber crossfire. After you clear the opening area, there's an all-too-brief interlude, and then the painful process of infiltrating the compound begins. Up and down the elevator you will go, goading goats into infighting, snuffing out Archviles, retreating, and wringing your hands over dwindling supplies. It's a long wince, this clearing out operation. Whittling down cybers and taking out monster formations piece by piece might have been fun with some room to move, but there is none of that here. The worst mistake you can make in this map is to run low on rockets before this happens. These infernal photocopiers deluge Cacos and Hell Knights while 4 Archviles rush down the stairs after them to pick up what you felled. I scrounged every single cell, shell, and bullet in the map, zeroed out my backpack, and why? Because I only had 20 rockets left. There is no negotiating this, no weaseling out, and no strong-arming. Your reward for surviving the grind is a twisted sort of wish fulfillment. 3 invulnerabilities to confront 2 cage fights, the latter of which is just a vulgar salvo of scratches, screams, and rocket punches. Fail to convert a white screen, and you're gore. A miserable map deserves a miserable ending. Down to the workmanlike stone and wood and metal aesthetic, Grinder is utterly obstinate and grating. The soundtrack's no good either. While it does exacerbate the stress, other MIDIs have done that more gracefully, even the original version of Suspense. It does, however, grind. I can't dispute that. There's no flavor to this kind of difficulty, just trial and error and endurance. I can't fault Gazebo for accomplishing what he set out to do, but why set out to do this? Grade D+, difficulty X. Map 7, Hollow Icon. Here it is, the debut of a style so fully formed, so decisive, and now so recognizable that it might have been transmitted from some outer plane. Something seems to have emerged from the sea of consciousness, caught our friend Gazebo by the throat and made him its interpreter, focused his mind, and possessed him with confidence. For 6 levels, he wrangled with this thing, or this thing wrangled with him, and then Hollow Icon was born. This map looks like what Doom should look like. There is an unshakable rightness in the patterns of wood, steel, and stone, blood and bone, in these inlaid crosses, ossuaries framed in red, asymmetric platters laden with fiends and interlocked like Tetris pieces. Hollow Icon's machine-like orderliness and hypnotic repetition are ruffled only by pried-up boards, but even these seem part of the algorithm. Sunder is not just a megawad, it's an entire philosophy. But even that word is inadequate. I almost want to say a culture or a way of being, because it's bigger than just a set of ideas. It's an inviolable system of iterative aesthetic expression and a discipline of spectacular and challenging combat craft delivered with a dual sensation of woe and woe. It's so incredibly difficult to capture what Sunder is. It's like trying to describe a color, but Hollow Icon is the map that put it all together first. The really momentous change here is the scale of combat. Henceforth, demons do not matter as individuals. Hollow Icon's opening encounters are lighter than Grinder's, less incisive than Precarious's, and more direct than Metal Descendants. They're not easy, but they are deployed with pressure perfectly proportioned. Then the first big fight arrives. The wave crests and the BFG begins to sing as the multitudes pour in. Beautiful violence emerges. Then Gazebo does it again, but bigger. And then he does it again, but so big that the number of lost souls spawned in the final fight will likely exceed the number of monsters you killed before you walked in here. This is where so many of us trembled and fought and died smiling. We died in love. Hollow Icon is an indelible moment in Doom history, a direct inspiration to generations of mappers, and one of the platonic ideals of slaughter. All that, and set to Demons on the Prey. Grade A+, difficulty X-. Map 8, Pale Monument. Forgive me. When in the presence of something powerful or important, the heart knows it, and often wishes to express something. Wonder, gratitude, anything to consecrate the moment. I feel that with Pale Monument. Meeting this map was a special moment in my life, but I falter even at the task of conveying what it means to me. I'm a fool, childish or delusional for trying to write Sunder's essence. It beggars language, but also stirs in us a longing to use it, so forgive me. I need to make my hopeless attempt. Pale Monument is the Sunder map I have revisited most often. It makes me think about dying. It taught me that megaspheres are the same color as flesh, and maybe that's for a reason. Many times upon entering this map I've thought it will try to overwhelm me, but I expect it to overwhelm me, so I won't be overwhelmed. And every time, I have been wrong. Death cannot be avoided. In Pale Monument, the dispassionate multitude can follow you anywhere. It moves without hurry. We sometimes picture death as hungry or lustful, but it is only inevitable. Cause and effect, like blood flowing from a wound, like a decaying formation of cacodemons following and following. They're not really smiling, you know. They are all just staring blankly. There are so many. This is where I begin to wilt, where my protests sputter and my eyes lose focus, and I begin to doubt that this is retrievable. There's not enough time to learn humility in your final moments, only to panic or set your teeth before you wink pointlessly out. Even with the crutch of the save button, Pale Monument crushes me like a bug, stumbling neck deep through blue juices and red offal, past dazed cyber demons and profane canvases and medikits buried in the dead. I feel especially aware that I am always running out of time. Here's a paradox. You are the only part of Pale Monument that does not belong because you are still drawing breath, but without you, it has no witness, no reason to exist. Without life, there is no such thing as death. Death needs life as much as life needs death. It worries me to think about where Pale Monument came from. If it is just slabs of monsters and textures arranged in a way that Insane Gazebo finds aesthetically pleasing, then I submit that aesthetics can be unconsciously sourced, and this was sourced from deep within. Pale Monument cuts to the heart of why we subject ourselves to hundreds or thousands of hours carving away at people's labors of love, shooting cartoon sprites with 2D guns. We do it because we are exploring the human imagination, interacting not only with each other, but also with worlds that few human minds can access. To me, it seems that Gazebo found a plane made in the image of our unanswerable fear of death. I am far removed from objectivity when it comes to this map, but I know it's not flawlessly constructed or even all that fun in places, and that doesn't matter. It is an irreplaceable experience. Grade A+, difficulty X. Footnote. The reason that I am Mount Pain 27, the reason that I'm talking to you today, is this MIDI. Fight the logic if you can. Late one night in 2019, I did a YouTube search for Misery Halek, my curiosity piqued by its #1 spot on Doomworld's most memorable maps list. The only way I can really put it is, it called to me, and I followed. Little did I know, one page over on the list, sitting at 17, my favorite number, was Pale Monument, whose soundtrack is also Fight the Logic If You Can. Map 9, The Cage. It's very easy to forget that Sunder was made by a mortal man, and mortal men are not gifted an unlimited supply of inspiration in one lifetime, let alone a year or two. Part of the Cage's problem is it's got such a great opening shot. Towers with tiny torches glittering, stanchioned in a hot sea of blood, silent and hard as eternity. As a video game level, the Cage embodies the metaphor of its structure for the wrong reasons. Metal Descendants labors for fun because it's battling uphill against its concept, and Grinder chooses the grueling path to make a point, but the Cage handcuffs you to an hour of unfun for reasons that are not clear. For most of the map, you will be confined to guardrail-less platforms above Red Death, doing battle with enemies that teleport in. Stumbling to your doom is cause for concern, but rarely are you pressured for space in situations when you might. Gazebo is inexplicably permissive of retreating, rarely uses flying foes, and some of his teledeployments are questionable. The sole function of this long, slow imp ambush is to highlight a switch that you would have bumbled into anyway, trying to figure out what the last one did. The Cage has several moments where you can practically stand still and hold down the trigger. Not that I'm hankering for abuse, but these fights make a mockery of their daunting setting. The respawning revenants are particularly shameful since they're far from infinite and totally unnecessary. Cheap as it is, at least this double cyber surprise demands you accommodate both assailants' angles without taking a dive, and the Pinkalanch is interesting for forcing you to accept a bite or two just to make sure a cyber rocket doesn't slip through. The Pig Slide also has a decent chance of pinning and eating one of the cybers, which to me justifies the silliness. At the Bacon Quake epicenter sits the first of 8 invulnerabilities you'll get in this map. I don't understand how being invincible serves the plot in most of these fights. You can get knocked into the drink by the stair cyber, but not in the plus sign arenas. With a BFG and 2 minutes of God mode, you're more likely to die of boredom in the aftermath. The final fight is the hardest part of the map, and I don't think it's even close. I blame the 2 build-up fights for sandbagging me, and the Cage's general tedium for dulling my instincts. It's asking an awful lot, getting hyped for this maelstrom of braying and bullets and burns after a lethargic hour, and especially demoralizing to die whittling down the last of the Cage's 170 barons. In the end, it's clunkiness that negates the Cage's spectacle. This is the last Sunder map for which I have no reverence. Grade C, difficulty X-. Footnote, why the hell is this elevator single use? Map 10, the Hag's Finger. Of all Sunder's colossi, the Hag's Finger is the slowest, the hardest to provoke. It's a sinuous climb to the Citadel's summit, replete with bare, dismal scenery. Withered gardens, a parched fountain, a graveyard gate ajar. Bobby Prince's sluggish synths and loping percussion set the tone brilliantly. It's a theme for a lazy predator, like a dragon who would rather sleep another 100 years than breathe its fire. In the opening fight, a quarter of its demon population bites it, and the hag's finger yawns. If its millipede fodder, 2 Mancubus corrals, and 8 cyber demons can't stop you, that's alright. This map has primordial patience. It can wait for you to lose your balance, or your nerve, or your concentration, so that becomes the test. It's your willpower versus the hag's finger's bloat smugness. When faced with seething masses that keep marching and keep getting back up, your sword arm must not grow weak, nor your eyes dim. Expect to be lulled into a trance and then treated to treachery. A clutch of archviles seizes upon this carrion pavilion when you return from the canyon switch. 24 pain elementals set the courtyard ablaze after you finish pruning the imps. The revenants and pinkies on the grand staircase will have their revenge, and you can never expect the dead to remain at rest in Sunder. You could accuse the hag's finger of excess and or dullness, but unlike the cage, its combat choices are much more insistent than awkward, which allows us to conceive of the hag itself as an antagonist. Archviles personify its reptile slyness and powers of regeneration. Hell Knights represent its droning animal violence, its senseless determination. 4 full backpacks of rockets spent on this snarling spill, a carpet of deflated pelts and guts where an army once stood. Revenants then seem to represent the hag's finger's awakened anger. A wall of them is enough to push you back, and in the sanctuary, their screams will harmonize with archvile fire as the last stand is made. This ball of bones will metastasize without diligent treatment, but if contained long enough, will eventually broil itself. Stubborn missiles and last-second flame strikes can topple players ground down by an hour of assembly line murder, so pinch yourself hard before you commence. I don't know if I fully enjoy playing this map, but that rides sidecar to my admiration. What Helm's Deep is to Lord of the Rings or Troy to Greek mythology, the hag's finger is to Doom. Grade A, difficulty X-. Map 11, The Furnace. Everything has a melting point. In the first minute of this map, you obtain a BFG. In the second minute, over 1,000 demons will be mindlessly annihilated, and you don't have to lift a finger. Around an eruption of steel blocks, you make circles, taking in the austere perfection of arches, columns, and the bright, coursing slag, which is all that's left of civilizations. The furnace consumes all. It might not be quite accurate to characterize the furnace as murderous. Murder implies some kind of relationship, and between this cosmic foundry and you, that could never be. The furnace is perhaps the ultimate old Sunder map because it is the ultimate statement of disregard for life. If Sunder can be thought of as a collection of masks that death itself wears, this one expresses only impassivity. It is simply too big to care. That is the furnace's greatest symbolic strength and, practically speaking, also its greatest weakness. As much as I love to romanticize maps from the rearview mirror, I remember how difficult it was to finish this a second time, and not because it's hard. After the magnificent opening moments, you are on custodial duty for almost half an hour, which looks like this. The herd culling one chamber over is far from unenjoyable, but it takes so much time to convert them all to corpses. The distance between rooms seems to expand when you lose your bearings. Stretches of alone time are filled with ceaseless auditory fog. These unthinkable proportions, so captivating at first, slowly begin to suffocate you. When the furnace once again pumps the bellows, you're a step behind. You've been operating in dilated time for too long. If ordinarily simple setups like the S-curve Cacotroph become fumbleable for me in the furnace's fugue state, the platforming circuit crucifies my nerves. Never would I wager an hour of my life to get a saveless exit. After this and some vengeful cleanup, there is one more hall to clear before the surface. This dread-drenched transition, exceptionally rare in Sunder, coupled with one last almighty massacre, brings it all back home. As it happens, the vine-tangled temple is an archvile clubhouse. They are here to remind us that there is no death toll Sunder's legions cannot sustain. The Furnace is one of the preeminent works of its genre. Its lineage is filled with slaughter royalty, and it is the touchstone for all that is metal and massive in the Doom multiverse. My personal opinion is that it's more draining than its best imitators, and that replays diminish the awe factor, but the awe factor is pretty goddamn staggering. Memories of the sluggish gameplay will fade, but I'll never forget the first time I dropped into the burning belly of the Furnace. Grade A+, difficulty X-. Map 12, the Zealous Machine. Depending on your point of view, the Zealous Machine is either Insane Gazebo regrouping or regressing. I can't say if it's a slightly more open version of Grinder or a slightly more closed version of Hollow Icon, but either way, the Zealous Machine is the first Sunder map not to break new ground, at least aesthetically. It's another network of interlocking chambers and gladiatorial pits open to an inflamed sky. It slaps a coat of paint on Map 3's bathroom tile, rolls out the same iron-wrought and red look from Map 6 and 7, dresses it up with some flesh canvases from Map 8, and calls it a day. It also lacks the sort of inspired sector doodling that made some of the earlier maps so arresting even with their limited texture sets. No question, the map is focused and competently drawn, but within Sunder, it's formulaic. And Sunder is the opposite of formulaic. Granted, in Doom 2 terms, Zealous Machine is an episode opener, so I could diabolically advocate for its theme rehash by calling it a sort of Sunder so far, and I would be glad to do so if the map wasn't such a seesaw to play. The opening fight always gets me grouchy. I know, you can AVJ to the BFG, but IDGAF. I'm not Zero Master, fellas, I'm just happy to be here. Things loosen up considerably in the middle game as Gazebo uncorks fiendish configurations on you and your cyber teammates. My favorite of these is this multi-pronged exchange where you evade clashing Hell Knights and Cybers, stumble into 2 more goats, your retreat blocked by Revs and Vials who can spot you from a bridge across the way, hit a Satyr switch, and dance through the uproar that ensues. It's a lean and ruthless fight, quite unlike most of what's on offer here. I'm a bit torn, because I enjoy the Pain Elemental Cluster Bomb and some of the Imp Spam, in a comic relief sort of way, and I've already praised Gazebo for making atmosphere out of rocket feeding formations, but the Zealous Machine seems to waste time for no clear reason. 2 harmless cyber impediments to plasma down, 2 imp ambushes that descend with all the punishment of a morning drizzle, a penultimate fight that starts with 4 minutes of running around in a circle going fupa while skeletons shriek, and a thunderous final act undercut by one of the most egregiously miscalibrated monster hordes of all time. If you can outlast the Revenants with your invulns, you'll be left with over 1,000 Hell Knights and Cacos to chip down with sparse rockets and sparser bulk cells. It is so dull. If the mega cleanup doesn't fry you, an hour of this middy's incessant blips and stomps surely will. Ultimately, what hurts the Zealous Machine most is its cannibalism of other Sunder maps for ideas. In 2009, this was a powerful statement, inefficient combat and all, but in context, it is the first time that Sunder fails to produce an even wider lens to capture Doom through. Judging by the next 2 maps' radical change of approach, it seems fair to speculate that Gazebo is finally reaching some kind of limit, if only for the moment. Grade B, difficulty X. Map 13, Obsidian Nightmare. Faced with diminishing returns on shock value from his ever-enlarging venues, Insane Gazebo adopted a new tactic. You can make a small map seem bigger and tougher if you make the player smaller and weaker. Obsidian Nightmare's opening straitjackets the player between a Cyber Demon and 2 gaps plugged with Hell Nobles while a Revenant Pressbox and Archvile look on. Once again, the first few minutes prove among the hardest in the map, but a war of attrition commences after you dig yourself out of the grave. That megasphere needs to stretch all the way through this first room, through noble standoffs, vile surprises, and 2 tense cyber duels. Careless rocket and plasma discharges can hobble you for any encounter involving pain elementals or archviles, and this is their home plane. A handful of medikits will keep you on life support for this well of pain in this scalding pavilion where revenants and vials jitter against invisible barriers. The designs on the floor restrict their movement. I wonder if Gazebo can honestly say this was part of the plan all along, because they only render encounters more ineffectual. At the end of the fiery serpentine, there's a crucible coliseum guarded by a meatball brood and 2 cyber demons, but don't even bother with them. Take plenty of ammo in because you don't get refills and survive 4 flights of escalating flammability to unlock the second act. The pillow of imps that greets you at the bottom of the stairs really drives home how harsh Obsidian Nightmare's first half hour has been. After a shootout with a clutch of pyromaniacs in a dark tunnel, one of very few fights I actually played well in this recording, recording, Gazebo detours you to his most high-functioning imp battle yet. It's subtly dangerous, but fair to a player who came out of the Vile Tunnel badly burned. Only 700 monsters in this map, and half of them are here. After one more well-lit tunnel battle, we finally come to Obsidian Nightmare's main event. This is Old Sunder at its most triumphant and excruciating. This supercharged hunted redux set in an Escher realm of plate metal and topaz prisms is the Doom mapping equivalent of a grand slam. An energy cell pack dreamed that it was a king, and this was its palace. Unfortunately, my enthusiasm for this room collapses without fail when I actually have to kill everything in it. The first wave of cybers and vials can be more easily vanquished if you run for the big gun and snag the invuln in time, but the second round is slower, messier, and less satisfying. Slaying the last few steers corralled by crystals, blocks, and etch-a-sketched orange lines turned a 20-minute trial into a 30-minute debacle. Obsidian Nightmare is consciously less hedonistic than the open maps which made Sunder famous, smelting carnage into glimmering ingots of anxiety. As a metaphorical pressure cooker, it's completely convincing, but tight combat Sunder will never make a convert of me. Grade A-, difficulty X. Map 14, Hive Mother. Not the bees. Built out of fire, beeswax, and still more orange effulgence, Hive Mother is one of Insane Gazebo's most effortful constructions. He laments in his text file, "I think I'll begin to get violent if I ever have to build anything out of hexagons again." May he find some consolation in the years of appreciation and wonder this map has evoked. Hell's Honeycomb from Speed of Doom may have taken some inspiration from it, but Hive Mother unmistakably influenced the second map of Combat Shock and the entirety of Eater 29's Firefly, among others. The kickoff might be more oppressive than Obsidian Nightmares, since you're limited to a boomstick for these low-lit larval ambushes, but I prefer a super shotgun grindfest and a few deaths bumping my elbows on the geometry to getting popped by a smug cyber over and over. This gripping opening grapple and the glorious wide shot from the Golden Skull Gazebo are the impressions of Hive Mother that have stayed with me the longest. Perhaps wrung out by the exhaustive set decoration, IG keeps the choreography concise. This is the lowest clear time I've gotten since map 7. After the intro, the Revenant Nest is the biggest demand on your time, and the danger therein is getting distracted and falling in a pit. If you feel like it, keep the Cybers alive to play with the Hell Nobles and unlock the outer grounds with the blue key. Across 2 honeycomb chambers, the intensity mounts, and once you've wrestled the BFG from its guardians, a torrent of imps and vials will gush from the Ruby Cathedral and out the gates. This is the Old Sunder I love best. 2 fights remain, and both of them smack of mapping fatigue. I'll withhold criticism on the first invuln-padded firebomb because you have to defend against getting launched into hot honey while fighting the clock, but the final bloodbath is simplistic. Gulp green, shoot green, run in circles. I know that invuln surfing is a staple of Old Sunder, but come on. Compare the complexity of these fights to the complexity of the setting. It's night and day. Insane Gazebo put Doom down for 10 years after finishing Hive Mother, and while flourishes like the red key sequence demonstrate that his creativity was far from bottomed out, I do think he ran out of gas in 2009. Still, this was a pretty dazzling way to go. Hive Mother represents the best of Old Sunder's artisanry and contains enough rousing moments to remind us why we adore it. Grade A, difficulty X-. So, that's Old Sunder. If I do map 15 and 31, that splits Sunder right down the middle. Should I do 2 more? Okay, I'll do 2 more. Map 15, Babylon's Chimera, and Babylon I shall. Welcome to New Sunder. Babylon's Chimera announces the regime change with new textures, a new palette, a new status bar, and a new definition of big. It was massiveness yet undreamt of. From a construction perspective, this is a map about height. Height so incredible that you cannot, even without the crick in your neck, see the top of what you are inside of. Unscalable verticals and endless plummets. It makes precarious look not so. Gazebo elaborates on the atypical shape doodling he did in Hive Mother, but now his fixation is with tessellating patterns of crosses and 8-pointed stars, concentric explosions gleaming like the sun. The more prominent custom textures, especially the recurring woman robed in blue, liberate Sunder from its vanilla chrysalis. The relentless application of all this blue and gold rippling under a flame-licked sky makes it very hard to absorb the scenery and survive at the same time. It's overpowering. gaudy even. Babylon's other motif is stairs. At the end, after you think about how many steps you've taken, it's humbling to realize that there are still nowhere near enough to span the map's height range. New Sunder also announces itself as bigger than what has come before to your PC's guts. There's a pavilion with a soul sphere under it that absolutely cripples my PC, and I was recording in 1280 by 720 with OpenGL rendering. It is game over for folks with suboptimal processing power. New Sunder retains its standbys, of course. Babylon's Chimera is still a linear chain of encounters with a few pace setters padding out the apocalyptic conjurations. Expect the usual salads of Hell Knights, Revenants, and Cyber Demons, but gear up early for crowds because that's when the BFG arrives. Archviles are more numerous than usual and often needed into the clamoring hordes. Discussing Sunder maps fight by fight isn't practical, but I will highlight 5 set pieces to summarize what you're in for. 1. The Imp and Revenant Abattoir was one of the major roadblocks of my first run because I was thinking about it all wrong. You need a cyber friend in there with you, and the rocket launcher isn't your only option. Even one BFG shot makes a difference, and the SSG is underrated for plowing. 2. The lava crossing to the mighty Imp corridor is my favorite sequence in the map, no doubt. What a pleasure it is to reduce such a titanic formation to a heap of ground beef, to watch the fireballs slowly dwindle, to stand alone in an empty hall where an army was howling for blood only moments before. This is what Sunder is all about. Oh yeah, and check those corners. 3. Taking a page from the Hag's playbook, the Water Plaza erupts in Cacos, Revenants, and Archviles, and it just surges and surges and surges. A knot of spindly limbs splinters and heals and screams and dies, but somehow continues to grow. You can only hope to contain it. This was 20 minutes of hard labor for me when I knew what to expect, and probably the most difficult fight in a map that makes even old Sunder veterans piss themselves. It's ridiculous. After a long and rather uneventful walk downstairs, you reach 4, the Pit, modeled after India's Shand Bowery stepwell, which brings barrens and vials bubbling up from the muck as a Revenant army churns out cataclysmic quantities of rockets above, and Pinkies just die. I love the openness and comical size of the pitfall, but this is one of the most abhorrent cleanup jobs in a WAD that's already not good with that. This many demons trying to scale this many stairs is a total snafu, and angles favor the climbing monsters whether you're picking them off from without or within. Ultimately, the spectacle is worth the mess. Finally, there's 5, the ending, which can be best described as nuclear peekaboo in a grand hall of stars. Babylon's Chimera is a lot. It uses such excessive force with line depths that it filters Sunder's player base by hardware, and it uses such excessive force with monsters that at least 3 of its fights take longer than a knee-deep in the dead speedrun. It is garish and hyperbolic and even outright cheesy at times. However, Sunder's name is known across this land because it transcends all that baggage. Gazebo's aesthetics demand genuflection, and at his best, he fuses iconic scenery with orgasmic barbarity. The corridor and the stair pit have an extra special majesty to them. There is no bigger vision of doom than Sunder, and after 10 years, Babylon's Chimera announced its return with a proud roar. I am Insane Gazebo, and don't you ever forget it. Grade A, difficulty X+. Footnote, oh, by the way, there's a secret exit here. The first and, to date, only secret in Sunder is stupid. It's a tiny, functionally invisible switch right by the exit which opens a teleporter in the previous room. That teleporter takes you back to much earlier in the map, and here you must intuit a jump to a ledge where there's a rad suit, also a first for Sunder, which protects you en route to the secret exit and a crack in the wall all the way down here. I guess it's obscure enough to be hard enough for Sunder, but the way it unfolds is as unrevolutionary as Sunder is revolutionary. Map 31, House of Corrosion. I'm prone to exaggeration. I bring out fancy words when I am most unable to describe things, but I won't do that here. I think House of Corrosion's establishing shot is not only its finest moment, but one of Sunder's finest moments, and one of the most amazing sights I have seen in all my years. I was gonna say playing Doom, but period. I'm so proud of Insane Gazebo. I know that's a silly thing to say, and I have no real right to say it, but look at how far he came since map 1. Imagine how much further he can still go. Now, before we discuss the alien cube interior, I have a digression to make. I know it's late, but it's my show, and I can do what I want. Everybody wants a piece of the mucus flow. No wonder. It's the greatest MIDI ever written. But what happens to a piece of music when it's borrowed? And what happens to the map that borrows it? In the Doom community, we share textures, sprites, code, and music. For the most part, everything's fair game because nobody's making any money. That being said, in exclusivity, there is value. For example, Back to Saturn X was the only megawad that looked like that prior to its texture resource release, and that meant something. It goes without saying that Doom maps and their MIDIs have strong relationships. The best pairs are almost like chemical compounds. Think TNT Revolution's Transduction and Ionian Isolation, Alien Vendetta's Toxic Touch and Plasma. To bring up BTSX again, Tough Skin River and Within Reach. All of these soundtracks have been used elsewhere, and not on obscure releases either. Of course, Plasma came from another game, but Toxic Touch has the de facto Doom rights to it. I'm using legal language, but a MIDI and a map belonging together has less to do with justice than with love, especially when a MIDI was written rather than picked for a map. That creates a kind of matrimony. If Ionian Isolation and Transduction are married, Toxic Touch and Plasma merely dated. If I may expand this analogy, I am much less appalled seeing Plasma dallying in the Toiselle d'Agonie series than I am seeing Within Reach canoodle with Resurgence's Claret Tides. Some MIDIs do find happiness with new mates, Stars and Cyberwar 7734, Day of Mourning and JPCP's Hellport, Gutter Penny and Man on the Moon, but invariably, the new marriage and/or ensuing polyamory degrades that specialness it had when it was still till death do us part. All this to say, the mucus flow and its MIDI are inseparable. I cannot ever play another map that uses this MIDI and not think of the mucus flow. I would go so far as to say it annoys me when other maps get to borrow the mucus flow's emotional heft. But here at the House of Corrosion's doorstep is the biggest stress test I can think of for the question I've been dancing around. Does any map really own any MIDI? Because of the mucus flow, my answer is yes. However, if maps and MIDIs can marry, then Insane Gazebo is the most fearsome home wrecker in Doom history. Sunset Over Babylon went out for a pack of cigarettes and never came back to Genesis. Under Death and Simple Solutions hopped in Gazebo's Ferrari without another thought to their Requiem partners, and things have never been the same between Fight the Logic If You Can and Misery Halak. In no case has it seemed like Gazebo is exploiting a MIDI's fame for a cheap boost. All of his work ennobles the music he chooses, but it does seem wrong to say that if a map is good enough, it can just steal any MIDI. There's a caveat to this. Last year I wrote a piece of music specifically for one of my own maps. It was then borrowed by another mapper, and I liked their level so much more than my own that I dubbed their map my MIDI's true partner. If BPRD showed up and declared House of Corrosion a better fit for the mucus flow than the map he made it for, I would stand down. Maybe. But until that happens, House of Corrosion is merely a very, very attractive suitor to be refused. It may seem silly that I spent so much time just talking about music, but there is no other ingredient more essential to House of Corrosion's main idea: claustrophobia. From beginning to end, House of Corrosion is about eluding the squeeze. There's the familiar anxiety of forming temporary cyber alliances and Gazebo's standing room only kill floors, but soon he adopts a new tactic, or at least one new to him. Nowhere in Sunder is the run-of-the-mill ambush more common than in House of Corrosion. It humanizes Gazebo to see him draw garden variety encounters, and even more to exploit them. Several smother fights where you're supposed to be surprised or locked in with monsters can just be backed out of or walked past. Large chunks of the map are designed around door fighting, albeit in the sense that you have no other choice but to pray they don't break through before your ammo counters hit 0. There's also an archvile maze with a spot they can't physically enter due to teleport lines, which makes the fight too easy for it not to have been an accident. Ironically, the more space House of Corrosion offers, the harder the encounter will be. The early Foursquare game with all the drooling Baphomets blew my doors in, but the arena towards the end with the tiny side tunnels is king vicious. Pain Elementals and Chain Gunners are squatting in the one safe corner, Archviles are running helter-skelter, Cyber Demons are bopping cacos around. Somebody let the animals out of the zoo. Nothing down the stretch tops this for treachery. Not the invuln-assisted fire extinguishing, not this platforming prank, not even when the BFG gets involved. The ending feels rushed, Gazebo perhaps having mapped himself into a corner corner of his own making. Despite its jagged pacing and occasional stiltedness, House of Corrosion defeats all gripes again with pure visual splendor. Somewhere on the other side of Python's cliffs, a mystery box emerged from the sea and turned everything a new shade of green. It reached out, touched the shore, and waited for visitors. It's Doom's Island of the Lotus Eaters. No one ever really leaves. But why would you want to? Grade A, difficulty X. So, Sunder still slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Until it's actually finished, I can only say so far in my concluding remarks, so for now I'll stop right here. God and Gazebo willing, I'll meet you here again when Sunder is done. Thank you very much for watching. Now I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge my generous patrons. Aaron Allen, Agile Jackson, Agu XYZ, Alephany, Alexander Levine, Alpha Skeeter, Artisan Talzar, Beatbeard, Birdburn, Blexor, Bochnik Schleba, Bitefire, Kappa-Bitch, Captain Wave, Charlie Pryor, Cheesewheel, Chloe584, Christophine Place, Daria Romero, Dark Matter 2793, Deefers, Delirium, El Inferno, Emperor Spoon, Endless Moose, Francis T218, Galaquack, General Roasterrock, Goth Ishigo, Gothic Box, Griffin Upchurch, Harvey Funbucks, Henners Lenners, Hexelix, Hot Tomato, Ian Hunter, Idiot Supreme, Jack DBS, Jeff Hibbert, Jeremy Francouz, Jimmy Paddock, Jude, Just Some Schmuck, Just Great 98, Killplane, Quan, Large Cat, Lexi Max, Logan Lazalda, Lord Biscuit the Tossable, Lumnal, Livin' Dead, Mamatic, Mark Rowland, Mars, Master Drew 117, Matthew Gower, Matthew Whithaha, McJimbles, Michael Akins, Michael Jensen, Midget Eminem, Mike Merrick, Mikey Boudieres, Miracle Water, Mixer, Malak Makane, Mozicon, Mullywiz, Neurometry, Nick XCOM, Knights 108, Number 26, Not Obelisk, Novaseer, NX Avery, Omnibot, One True Purple, Pezavangjanj, Philip Coffee, Foo, Ravendesk, Razmataz, Red Doomed Earth, Reese Anderson, Richter Berg, Roy, Salt Bad Guy, Saf the Coffee Witch, Scoobly, Sean Grant, Snacker Fork, Star Cannon 399, Stonemason, Strongest Fairy, Stupid Nick, Sylvester Priss, Tamariel, Tarakushino, Tavio, Terry J. Pendragon, The Lippy Server, The Refined Odyssey, TJG1289, Turbine 2K5, Two-Time Grime, Velenex, Video Game Lover, Vonehead, Wandering Autumn Leaves, Why Bimo Not a Crab, William Huber, and Yugi Boy 85. I appreciate you all very much, and thank you for waiting. This is Mount Pain 27, and I'll see you in the next episode of Dean of Doom.
And Mount Pain 27, thank you very much. Good luck on your quest to down Sunder. I'll be taking notes. The Dean of Doom, Sunder edition. I look forward to that one.